Hey everyone, and welcome back to 4 Wheel Builds. We have a lot of work planned for this episode, mainly to get the engine bay prepared and painted to make sure it's ready to accept the M276 engine coming back from a V12 garage. So without too much talking, let's get into it. The boys from V12 garage are taking the engine away, and there's the boss himself. He's going to make this engine into a little beast. As you have just seen, the boys from a V12 garage have come and picked up the C450 AMG engine. They'll check everything, make sure that everything's good. Now, I probably could have put all the broken parts back on the engine myself. That's not a problem. But I really want them to check the engine to make sure it's good. And then once it's all put together, it's not going to break down within a matter of 100 or 1,000 kilometers or 5,000. I want the engine to be as good as it came out from the factory. And I must admit, I don't actually have the skills to be able to do that. So that's why I want to leave it to the professionals to make sure that the engine is fixed up correctly. So the task for me now is to get all those engine parts that are needed to put that engine back together again. So let's get those packed up, get those put onto the Citroen Berlingo shop truck and get those delivered to the V12 garage boys. Okay, we've got all the parts that we need packed in the car, so let's close it up and get it taken away to the V12 garage. Now, what a shitty day it is today. It's just been raining and been cold all day. End of summer, I guess. Okay, it is a couple of days later, and I've done some work off camera on this quarter. I guess I went a little bit overboard in terms of just trying to match things up between the original and I guess the newly painted side by myself. So I think I'll just do a little bit more, maybe black undercoat, just to sort of blend this in a little bit more. But other than that, it should stay like that and that should be fine. So what I'll do today is just give everything a wipe down once again and then get this side painted in. So the undercoat, the base color and the clear. Just to make sure that this can then dry down. I can put the cables through from the interior. Plus I can move the car into the workshop because, well, I've got very little space on this side to work on this car, to take off the fender. So it's better if the car stands over there. Alright, so let's get this section sprayed in. It does look a little bit odd at the moment. But once you spray a little bit of matte black on it, it actually blends in a whole lot better. Well, first of all, just need to give our E4 primer a bit of a mix. Not much, I think we just need 100 ml, maybe not even that. We'll put our reducer in now. Okay. And now let's get everything mixed up nicely and get put in the spray gun. And let's start spraying. Well, as you probably noticed on that time lapse, I had a bit of a slip as I was getting into the engine bay to lay down the primer from the inside. Lucky enough, nothing happened, but be careful. Okay, so we've laid down a couple of coats of this black primer and that's looking great. So now let's grab our base. This is the Mercedes 197. I'm going to mix it up 2-to-1 and get this sprayed in. And for our base, it's also a 2-to-1 mix. For this, I think we probably just need to use about 50 mils. I don't think we'll need much at all. Well, let's maybe give it a mix before we pour it. Just make sure it's all mixed up. put the cap underneath the filter to have it all drip through, to make sure there's no crap in the paint. So let's now get painting. Okay, we've dropped 2 coats of our base and it's looking fantastic inside and out. Now we've just mixed up some of our clear. We'll drop it into the mini shine once again. It's nice and handy, this little gun. Just gets into those nooks and crannies a little bit better than those bigger guns. So let's get it filled up with the clear and let's get that sprayed in. And take a look at that, guys. 2 coats of clear and the paint's slicked in and looking magnificent. I've just undone all the tape and there's the inside, and that's looking slicked in as well. So really happy with that. Now obviously just need to wait for that to dry and then we can get a, I guess, wiring loom through. Now next is the other side, so obviously we've got to do the same. Get the paint job done and get this seam sealer put on. So yeah, it's still quite a bit of work to do, but first of all we need to get the car moved into that location so I've got the space to be able to work on the car. Now let's clean up my Italco mini shine spray gun. Done a really good job, I must admit. Now that I've got the car on all fours, we can get it moving. Well, as you can see, we've got quite a mess going on in the garage and I really need the car to be moved from there to here. So let's clean this mess up and get this car somehow moved. This should be a lot of fun. Well, now that the garage is relatively clean, let's use the floor jack plus one of these wheel jacks and place them either side on the end of the car and see if we can swing the butt around over here and then push the whole thing back. I am doing this all by myself, so well, wish me good luck. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, how you repark a C450 AMG station wagon 90 degrees in a very tight workshop. Using my trusty shop jack and one of these wheel trolleys. This was a really good buy. I need to get another one of these. Anyway, let's chock these wheels to make sure that this car doesn't go away anywhere. And now she's good. Now that we've got the car moved, when the car came back from the body shop, one thing I noticed that this brake hose or brake line was broken right on the end here. So luckily we've got the actual ending and there's about 1.5 centimeters that goes broke off. So I bought these two. These are steel lines, so these are apparently really hard to actually prepare. So I bought this special tool that apparently deals with steel lines. So let's give it a go, and it's got one of these bits to bend this back into a shape like so. So I move to the floor here. I've got everything set now, just a 17mm spanner, and just do this up until that, I guess, little mushroom head is formed on the line. Okay, let me get that done and I'll show you what the result is. And there's the actual done up line, the brake line, and that's quite nice. I think I just need to get some sandpaper and just sand some of that, I guess, plastic covering that's off it. That's a little bit messy, so not quite sure it's going to get a good seal, so I'll need to just rub some of that down. But outside of that, that's done, so we can put our hose line back on and get this screwed up and make sure it's safe and we don't end up losing the brake hose. Now that we have the car moved, let's strip this right hand side fender so we can start preparing this side of the engine bay to get painted. But maybe for safekeeping, let's put this fender back on just temporarily so it's out of the way. So now we've got the left hand side fender put on. Let's get working on the right hand side. As we did with left hand side, let's first start off with putting some filler in here just to make sure we don't see any of these welding marks here. Well, the next steps call for sanding, and a lot of it. Using sandpaper, scuff pads, whatever the hell works will be done. But it's something I showed you on the other side, so let me save you the agony and let me get this work done off camera, and I'll show you how it looks when I'm done. I'm sure there's better ways of you spending your time than watching me sand.
2,000 years later.
Guys, and the sanding is complete from the top, from the side, from the bottom, everywhere that needed to be done. The sanding is done and we're good to go. I've given everything a once over with the isopropanol, so everything's nice and clean. So now I need to get out that epoxy primer. Man, I really need to clean this place up. There's just parts everywhere. This Mercedes rebuild is just going crazy. It's just parts everywhere. I really need to get myself organized and get myself some shelves into the main workshop area. Anyway, there's the epoxy primer. Let's throw some down on the car. Okay, so the epoxy primer is down. It's dry. So we're good to start putting down the seam sealer. Now the seam sealer in today's episode may actually be very, very interesting because I got myself one of these gizmos, which is apparently a seam sealer gun. Just a cheap Chinese version. There you go. Hawaii C220. Let's give it a try and see how this goes. Wish me luck. I might need it. Okay, so we're ready. Apparently you're supposed to use between 3 to 6 square meters of force for this, so I don't know, I'll hook up the air and we'll see. Okay, well, first thing I can see is my air hose connection doesn't want to fit the one I've got here, so I think I've got to change that over quickly. No, this doesn't seem to be bloody working. Or maybe if I wasn't such a dumbass, because as you can see, I didn't actually open up the tip of this bloody thing. So that's why it wasn't coming out. There you go. That should be better now. Okay, let's give this another whirl. This is exciting. I love new toys. I am getting a little bit of a leak because I replaced it with my own connector, but that's quite a bit longer than this one, and plus this one's got a rubber ring, so I don't actually have any Teflon tape here to be able to get this down, but I think we should be okay. And that's the pattern that we're getting, which is, I must admit, it's quite nice. Plus, obviously, it's a little bit easier on the hands. Anyway, so let's take a little gizmo and go and start getting this seam sealer onto the car. Alright, so all the seam sealer is done. Well, I think there's a certain technique, if you get this right, I think you can get really good results, so like I got here. Whereas, I guess, in other locations, I'm not quite sure if it's as good. I think one of the problems I found each time is that I just kept on leaving all this crap behind, which is disappointing, but overall, it did a good job. I think it was a little bit easier to get around because, I mean, you don't actually have to pump the nozzle. It was controllable. I think there's like I said, there's a certain technique I think which I need to pick up, and once I pick that up, I think this should be quite good. Plus, I'm not quite sure if this seam sealer that I got was any good. Seems quite runny. Not quite sure if this is the way it's meant to be. Like I said, this is the first time I've actually ever done this. So let me know what you guys think. I still got some seam sealer left in the tube, not much that's left over. Let's give it a bit of practice and see if we can get these seams right. So as you can see, guys, that one's probably not too bad, but it's all nice and good to do it on a cardboard box or piece of paper in front of you. It's a whole different ball game when you're actually in the car and you're trying to get into these tight spaces. Because I think that's the issue. The main issue is that the fact is, well, I think you can recreate the pattern. It's just a matter of practice to get it done in those tight spots. And it's the very next day here at the 4-Wheel Builds workshop. I've come in and our seam sealer is dry. That means we can get painting. So you've seen the process already on the other side. So let me put you on time lapse. Let's get the whole thing done in a matter of seconds rather than hours. I'm breaking a time lapse. Everything's going great. I've dropped the primer, plus I've dropped the base, but in a one single spot that you'll be able to then see the paint, I've had this weird reaction. As you can see, there's some wrinkling that's occurred. So I finished the base everywhere else. Now I've got to stop this, wait for this to dry out, sand this down, drop some primer on here once again, a couple of coats, just make sure that dries out, and then go ahead and drop a couple coats of base once again on here. That's a pity because everything was going really well, and this sets us back a little bit, but not to matter. As Brian from Paint Society says, stop what you're doing, assess what you need to do next, and then make that happen. So a little setback, but not to matter. We'll get it sorted out, and that paint job will be finished today. I've waited the time out, so now let's use some 220 paper. Let's see if we can get this sanded out. If you know what might have caused this, leave a comment. And then it was done. So the engine bay of the Mercedes C450 AMG is now fully complete. Well, I still do have to spray in this cavity wax stuff in all the members where all the welding has been done, just to make sure there's no rusting from inside, but I'll get that done tomorrow. It's getting really late, as you can see behind me. The painting does take a long time. I think it's just the fact that, well, obviously I'm recording stuff, but in between, yeah, you're waiting for I guess the layers to dry, and maybe I'm just too fussy, maybe I'm just give it too much time, I don't know, but oh, it is what it is. The engine bay is done, so let me give you a tour. So this is that, I guess, fender support. Remember that we had the issues with? That's all been smoothed out and that's looking great in there. everything's done. Oh, obviously there's still some taping that needs to come off on the inside. Yeah, and everything does look a little bit different now because, well, it's not dirty and it's all fresh. So once the dirt is up, we should see this to be about the same. I do need to clean that grey stuff up there. That's from, I think, sanding. So I'm bloody ecstatic that the engine bay is done, because what that means now is this car, well, it's gonna start coming together now. I can start putting all the pieces back in one at a time and just building this thing back up to the great car that it once was. And I'm so looking forward to driving this for the first time. Oh, this is gonna be an awesome experience. Okay, so let's do the cavity wax and get this episode finished. It's dripping. Let's go hit the other side. Now, in order to do the cavity wax on this side, I need to take the fender off once again. Okay, that's a cavity waxy thingy by jiggy done. Okay, so now we can put the car back on its forks. And now she's back on all fours. And I must admit, I love the look of her on all fours. So that's going to be it for today's episode. I think we've got a lot done in this one, but most of all, I'm really ecstatic that the car is now ready to have the engine be put back in, and I can start piecing everything back together again. So there's a lot of fun and excitement coming up on this channel over the next few episodes, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, consider leaving me a comment, leave me a like, and consider subscribing. It's going to help me and the channel out enormously, and it's going to, well, I guess, push me forward in being able to bring you cars such as this one when they're all smashed and we can bring them back onto the road. Anyway, I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.